Hey guys, it's Mandy. Welcome to my channel. So I'm making this video not to try and convince anyone not to become a landlord, but because I think we do a really good job of talking about all the positives. And if you're interested in becoming a landlord, I think a video about all the negatives would be really useful for you. So my first negative, I'm not able to articulate it as well as I would like to, but I think you'll know what I'm talking about. And if you're a landlord, then you've likely already experienced this firsthand anyway. My number one negative, and it's not in any particular order, but number one is how people perceive landlords. And I think it's most helpful for me to give you a comparison. So, my parents were both veterinarians, and everyone automatically assumes veterinarians are kind and compassionate, caring people who like to help animals and help people. They don't even have to have ever met you. They just assume you're a good person. Another good example I can think of is nurses or teachers. Just think about a kindergarten teacher. You've never met this person, but you find out that they're a kindergarten teacher. You're probably going to be assuming that they're patient and kind, that they have like a sweet demeanor and they love children. And you're not going to be thinking, oh, that person's just out to make money. You're probably actually thinking, wow, they're like doing something that's really great and they're helping educate the younger generation. Well, it's kind of the opposite with landlords. People just assume that landlords are greedy and that all they care about is money. And of course, not everybody feels this way, but here are some of the things that people are saying about landlords on the internet. And it's not just people on the internet either. I have actually been told straight to my face, and it wasn't like a passive thing, it was meant to be personal, that all landlords are slumlords and all they care about is money. And this person didn't know me. Actually, we had literally met like 10 minutes ago. I had just closed on the house that she lived in, and she knew me for about 10 minutes. So there's no way she could have known whether or not I was a slumlord. Of course, I was raised not to care what random people who have never even met me think about me. But at the same time, my reputation is really important to me, and I do want to be known as someone with integrity. So I would be lying to say that, people's general negative perceptions of landlords doesn't sometimes weigh on me. Number two, if you are doing this to have a passive investment, then there are definitely easier, more passive investments. I know being a landlord, you can make it more or less passive. For me, since I manage all my own properties, and now since we have 17 of them, it's really not that passive. But if you have a property manager, then it could be pretty passive. It's still not going to be completely passive. Whereas if I think of the stocks that my husband and I have, I actually have like a really old, it's not really old, it's 5 years old, I think, a 401k from when I was the 1 year that I worked as a chemical engineer. And I put a certain amount of money in, and then my company matched it to a certain percent. And since then, it's literally just been sitting in wherever it's sitting. It's been sitting there. Fidelity. I don't know what to say. In the account, it's just been sitting there. I haven't touched it. I haven't lost a single night of sleep about it. Actually, I rarely ever even think about it. It doesn't even cross my mind. It's 100% passive. And actually, in the time that money's been in there, it has done really well. Number three, as a landlord, you're going to have to face a lot of difficult situations and situations where you feel like the bad guy. Almost every part of being a landlord, like it can be a really rewarding process, but also sometimes those parts can be difficult as well. So even increasing rent, and I know I'm not the only one who struggles with this, because if you look at those properties on the market that are tenant occupied, a lot of them, the rent is substantially below market value. We all know that over time, you do have to increase the rent because all of your expenses are increasing. But tenants don't really understand that. They think if they've been living there for a long time, if they've been paying rent that whole time and taking care of the property, that they shouldn't have to, like, rent shouldn't have to increase for them. And some of them, it may be a financial thing as well. Like, their income may not be increasing and they may not be able to pay more for rent. So it does become really difficult as a landlord knowing the right thing to do there. Another thing that can be difficult is having to enforce your lease. So my tenants, they usually all add me on Facebook, which is fine, except for then when they break the lease and they put it on Facebook, I know about it. So one of my tenants, a few months ago, got a brand new, like, little 12-week-old puppy, and that is a major violation of the lease. So I only allow them to have up to 2 pets, and they have to be under 50 pounds, and they have to be over 6 months old. So obviously, like, this dog is a violation because it's not 6 months old. The reason that I say that it has to be 6 months old is because if it's that little, it's not potty trained. It's just going to be chewing on everything. Pet damage adds up really quickly. So I've had a lot of pet damage in the past, and I just don't want to deal with it. And one way that I think minimizes it is to require dogs to be a little bit older. And the other thing is that these people already had 2 pets. So this would be their third. So I have to go say, hey, I saw on Facebook you got a puppy. I just wanted to remind you that that is a violation of the lease, so you will have to get rid of the puppy. That's a hard thing. Like, you don't want to make them get rid of their puppy, but they are the ones that violated the lease. They knew that they couldn't have the puppy and they got it anyway. Even just enforcing late fees can be difficult. And then when a tenant stops paying rent altogether, that is a situation that can escalate really quickly. And you'll find that when you list a property for rent, you will have all kinds of people wanting you to let them rent your property even though they don't meet your screening criteria. And when you won't, they're going to say mean things about it. They're going to say, all you care about is money, and they would be a great tenant. You just won't rent to them because they don't make enough money, all this stuff. Like, all you do is you care about money. That's what everybody's going to say. And the thing is, it's actually more than that. The reason you can't let somebody rent your house if they don't meet your screening criteria is because that can be seen as discrimination. So if you let person A rent your house, even though they don't meet your screening criteria, but you rejected person B because they didn't meet your screening criteria, then person B can claim that you are discriminating against them and you have violated the Fair Housing Act. That is territory that you just want to stay far away from. So that's the main reason why you can't rent to them, even though they don't meet your screening criteria. The other reason is that your screening criteria is there for a reason. You have found that tenants who meet those requirements are better tenants in general. They're going to take better care of your property and they're going to pay their rent. Now, this isn't true for everyone, but it's general. That's a generalized criteria, and that's what you require. You are trying to protect your asset. And if you just let anyone move into your house, like, I understand people can be in really tough situations. And I understand some people who contact me, they say they're going to be homeless if I don't rent to them. There are programs in my community that help those people, that will provide them temporary housing until they can find a more permanent solution. And those are charities. Like, I do donate to my community and I do try to help people and I do care about helping my community. But to risk an entire house, you just can't do that. You're trying to run a business, you're trying to stay profitable, and you can't risk renting an entire house to someone who, once you get them in there, they stop paying rent and they destroy your house. That's just too big of a risk to take on. Number 4, hiring handymen and contractors. You guys probably knew this is coming. It's something that I have struggled with for the duration of having rental properties. And what I have learned, my best advice for you is to hire out professional, like people who do specific things, and that's all they do, as much as possible. So if you have a room that needs a new drywall, go find someone who all they do is drywall. That's all they do all day long. They don't do anything else, and hire that person to drywall your room. If you need plumbing done, hire a plumber, a licensed plumber, and get it done. Same for roofing and flooring and painting and roofing, all of those things. Anything you can hire. If you need tile work done, hire someone. All they do is tile. You will probably have handymen say that they can do plumbing and they'll save you tons of money. But in my experience, number one, they never actually end up saving you money. And number two, they just don't do as good of a job. My biggest struggle, though, is even though I hire out as much of the individual stuff that I possibly can, there's always stuff that I need a handyman person to do. Like maybe you need a railing built on some steps, or a house like sort of, gutted. You have paneling, you want it all ripped down, or you need a fiberglass shower surround put in, or you need the bottom of a vanity or the kitchen cabinets, you need it rebuilt. There's just I can't seem to think of anything right now, but I'm always having to hire handymen for things. And my problem is that they don't seem to want to show up on time, and then they don't seem to want to do good work. And usually the first thing, like the first job that I hire them to do, it's decent, and then it just kind of goes downhill from there. I don't know why that is. For a while I was thinking maybe it was something that I was doing, because I felt like for as many people as I had hired, how could I still have not found someone good? But then I go on Facebook and I see that like every homeowner in my town is having this exact same problem. And last week I went to an investor meet and greet here in Tennessee, and that seemed to be a very common problem. Everyone was complaining about finding reliable contractors to do work on their rental properties. So I think it's just sort of the name of the game. Unless you get really lucky, you're going to have to struggle with this as well. Number 5 is getting a bad tenant. No matter how hard you screen, no matter how strict your screening criteria is, you can still get a bad tenant. And I'm not just talking about like a kind of bad tenant. I'm talking about a nightmare tenant, one who stops paying their rent or they're destroying your property. Usually those two things go hand in hand. Like first they stop paying their rent and then they start destroying your property, or they're destroying your property and then they stop paying their rent. Usually they go together, but this is just a bad situation. You're likely going to have to spend, even in the best case scenario, a month or two trying to get them out of your house. You're going to have to hire an attorney. The eviction process is going to be expensive, and that entire time they are probably destroying your house. It is highly unlikely that you're ever going to see any of your back rent. You're ever going to see any of that rent paid to you. You're never going to see any money for the damages that they do. Yeah, you get to keep their deposit, but I mean, that was spent a long time ago. So in this situation, it's basically like your house, which was supposed to be an investment property making you money, now becomes a giant pit, and you just have to throw a bunch of money into it, and you actually end up losing money instead of making money. So that's probably the very worst thing to be prepared for if you are going to become a landlord. And luckily, like it's more common to get a good tenant than it is to get a bad tenant. So those are the things that I think are negatives of being a landlord. Obviously, I think the positives outweigh the negatives, but I think it's just good to be aware and to be prepared for the things that you might face. Anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.